Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our county council meetings, where we have a series of meetings: public hearing, finance committee, and county council meeting. But before we start, I'm going to ask us to pause for a moment of silence for the 14 kids and one adult that were murdered in Texas. So at this time, let us all have a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Okay, so right now we are going to start our public hearing process. I'm going to turn this over to the clerk.
Notice is hereby given that Charleston County Council will hold the second public hearing regarding the request to amend the Kiowa River Development Agreement and Plan Development PD 143B.
Okay, we already saw the presentation.
Yes, sir.
So do we have any speakers?
We do. We have 5 speakers.
Okay, if you call their name, I would ask you to come up, and we'll give you 2 minutes apiece. We ask that you state your name and your address.
The first person is Lori Kristen and then Kirsten Schwachty.
Okay, if you'll come in that order. Come right up. Your name and address, ma'am, and we'll give you 2 minutes.
And my address is 4927 Flagship Lane. And before I begin, I would like the record to reflect that of the 4 individuals who spoke in support of STRs on May 10th, none currently reside at Kiowa River. 1 was a developer, 1 an attorney, 4 an investor, 1 had a house under construction, and the last hadn't closed on their property. A proponent claims the price per night of these STRs keep them out of the range of rowdy college renters. Most are unaware of the high rents paid by CFC students and exorbitant sums fraternities and sororities pay for a week or weekend retreat. It's disconnect like this that will make lives miserable and destroy neighborhoods. Being a parent of 2 CFC students, 1 a fraternity commander or a president, I know of what I speak. New York, Florida, Georgia, Chicago, Key West, Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, Columbia, Seabrook, Kiowa. These are just some of the states, cities, and municipalities trying to limit or ban STRs. If STRs are so beneficial to communities and neighborhoods, why are so many locales trying to curtail their activity and the problems they create? Right now, this is a problem we don't have. Why are we trying to invite proven problems into our neighborhoods? STRs place property owners at the mercy of developers. They are people who charge our HOA fees and haven't delivered on the commitments. They can't control the contractors who work for them. Workers speed down our streets and leave trash that encourage vermin. How will they control STRs? We took the developers at their word. We read the PUD and the covenants when we purchased. We bought STRs, we were assured STRs weren't the community vision for this agrihood. We picked a community based on these facts. Many who want this change don't or won't live in this community. The developers are assuring prospective buyers this amendment will play us to close deals.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kirsten Schwachty, followed by Kevin O'Neill.
Good afternoon. My name is Kirsten Schwaka, and as of 11 a.m. today, I'm officially a homeowner at 7900 Flagship Lane on Johns Island. Our full-time residence is at 329 Landover Road in Columbia. I am in favor of the proposed amendment and support the decision to allow limited short-term rentals on all properties within the community. I shared at the last public hearing that my husband and I bought in Kiowa River to use as a vacation home for our family, and we wish to have the right to do short-term rentals with the confines of 72 nights per year. We are unable to claim this home as our primary residence, as my husband is currently active duty and I'm a military veteran myself. It appeared that some homeowners had created a petition against the amendment, and while I'm a few weeks behind, I have created a petition in support. As of the time of this meeting, there are 86 signatures supporting the passing of the amendment. I also have had about 7 homeowners and future homeowners personally reach out to me over email and Facebook Messenger, expressing support of the amendment and asking for an understanding of what is happening. I believe that that is a great number, as I didn't have contacts to all the community homeowners until today. To my understanding, this amendment is just the formal adoption of the regulations City Council set forth in 2018 for short-term rentals. The original Kiowa PUD, created in 2009, did not automatically adopt any changes in ordinances or regulations. Also, there was a survey done in January that showed 51% of homeowners were in favor. and I was not a homeowner at the time, but I'm telling you today that I am in favor of that. I believe that the 72 nights a year, which is less than 20% of the year, is a very fair compromise between homeowners in the community. That means that a home that is used as a short-term rental will not be able to rent short-term for 80% of the year, which respects the rights of homeowners against the amendment. I am asking for you, the council, today to please pass this amendment on behalf of Kiowa River. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Kevin O'Neill, then Brian Jordan.
Is that?
Good evening. My name is Kevin.
You can pull that mic up.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Kevin O'Neill, 320 Broad Street, Charleston, South Carolina. I work for Kiowa River Investment, LLC, the developer of the Kiowa River community. We've submitted this application to amend our development agreement following several meetings with county staff in order to permit short-term rentals at Kiowa River. Generally, we've adopted the county provisions, the same provisions that are in the county ordinance, but with some stricter controls, including a minimum 7-day rental. In addition, to ensure consistent high quality and standard for the short-term renters, we've named a designated broker to handle all short-term rentals in Kiowa River. That designated broker is currently Seawee Properties. Keep it short. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Jordan, and then the last person is Trenham Walker.
My name is Brian Jordan. I live at 1474 Mizzen Alley. I oppose short-term rentals in Kiowa River. As of this morning, 122 people have signed a change.org petition opposing short-term rentals in Kiowa River. Of those, I've been able to verify 55 households have been verified to be property owners in the community, so not just people, but property owners, households. We are working to verify the remaining 43 signatures who have signed. As property owners, I haven't been able to do that yet. I brought a copy of all the signatures to share with you today. If you guys want a copy of it, I'm happy to hand it over. I've got a copy for each of you. Kiowa River will not attract vacationers. Our community is pristine and beautiful and is being marketed by the developers as a wedding destination with a wedding venue under construction. Wedding parties will be the primary renters, large parties of families gathering to celebrate for multiple days at a time. I live on lot EA32 as is seen in Exhibit 4.4. This section is called the Butterfly Cottages. Our side setbacks are 5 foot and my neighbor is 10 feet away. This is the densest section of the community and the worst place to allow wedding party renters. I hope you give this issue consideration it deserves, and homeowners are counting on you guys. Please consider not allowing any short-term rentals in our community. If, however, you do pass it, I ask you continue to require the developer to a minimum stay of 7 nights, and that you remove the option for any extended home rentals of up to 144 days by special zoning request for all properties in the community. The developer can always come back to request amendments to allow short-term rentals in future phases of our 1,600 plus lot community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Trenham Walker, 66 Hazel Street. I'm here on behalf of the owner. I'm going to pick up on something I said the first time, and that is what's going on here with the owner's application is actually a curtailment of the rights that the owner already has. As we explained last time, this property is under development agreement, which is not subject to later laws. And Councilman Darby asked a question about that. I then wrote a letter to Ms. Ham setting forth and explaining how that works. So we reached this agreement with staff that we would submit in order to have regulations and to limit the number of nights to have no more than 72. It's a curtailment over what somebody out in the county can have because we're restricting it more than anybody in the unincorporated county. The other thing I'd like to respond to is that I think you know now that the covenants that were of record specifically contemplated that there would be short-term rentals. So the idea that there was no notice is, it may be stated in good faith, but it's inaccurate. Finally, there's this suggestion that anybody who rents a short-term rental is going to be drinking beer and partying all night long. There are plenty of people with families who like to come to a place like this as close to Kiowa and Seabrook and are not there to have a big old drinking time as they might do downtown. This is a rural property, and it's not in the owner's best interest to have it be a party town. That's why they have a broker. They've got restrictions on it, and they're going to closely monitor it. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, sir. This matter will come before us tonight. It'll be item number 5 on our county council meeting. We now move to our public comments, where we allow the public to address this body. You wanted to say something, Mr. Darby, before I move on?
So that I could better try to understand the
Yes, sir.
community, so I was wondering, for those who are here not in favor, I would just like to see them stand. Is that possible, sir?
You can do, I can ask that.
If you wish for, I just want to see, sir.
Who all is not in favor, would you please stand? You got 6 people.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, now we move to our public hearing. How many speakers do we have
We
tonight?
have 15 speakers.
Okay, 15 speakers, that's 2 minutes apiece. We ask that you give us your name and your address, and we'll start out with our first, Ms.
Denise Reynolds and Jalen Koffel.
All right, if the second speaker will stand behind her, so that way we can kind of move it along. Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
My name is Denise Reynolds. I live on Parkside Drive in District 3. Thank you, members of council, for taking time to hear my concerns regarding the Mark Clark extension. I believe the new cost estimate of $2.35 billion for building these 8 miles of roadway makes it no longer a viable option. To start, it seems the primary funding stream is to come from the half-cent sales tax, which taxpayers were specifically told would not be used for this project. This bad faith puts into question the rest of the decisions surrounding implementation of this project, as without that dubious starting point, there would be no money at all for the extension. Even if the funding could be found, it is estimated that shovels will not hit the ground for another 10 years. Meanwhile, improvements which could benefit congestion much sooner are either being sidelined, such as the pitchfork roads of the main road corridor segment B, or are design dependent, like 2 of the segment C alternatives, in the continuing hope that extension prevails at seemingly any cost as the primary solution. To put the astronomical costs in perspective, the preliminary engineering price tag of $150 million is equivalent to and sometimes well exceeds the entire cost of most segment C alternatives. The county's $1.9 billion share of the 8-mile extension would cover the cost to build out 95 miles of bus rapid transit. County recently spent $12 million to update the environmental impact statement, yet the new parameters for climate impacts were not considered. This will almost certainly trigger more legal costs, adding to those associated with the battle over the use of the half-cent sales tax as a funding source. I understand the desire for the exploding number of residents to have this extension to ease their transit to the sea isles, but studies show a negligible amount of time will be saved. If the development was so dependent on this project succeeding, I feel it was bad judgment for the permits to be issued in the first place, knowing that the infrastructure needed has forever been controversial and is now unduly costly. The taxpayers and the rest of the county are held hostage to the cost of this project. I urge council to abandon the North Park extension plan and consider other alternatives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jalen Knothole, John Ramono.
John Ramona, would you come behind the speaker?
My name is Jalen Brooks Neffley, and my address is 2235 Ashley Crossing Drive. I'm commenting on the proposed I-526 expansion. I live in West Ashley, which is an area with a lot of flooding and a lot of traffic, but the proposed plan is not going to address the traffic issues. It will increase the number of cars on the road instead of decreasing them, and it has not been shown to meaningfully reduce the amount of time to get from place to place. Additionally, flooding is very bad in my area, and paving over parts of the James Island County Park to build this road will only make it worse by reducing the amount of land available to absorb rainwater. Instead of this destructive road, I would rather see investment in better public transportation like Low Country Rapid Transit that will result in fewer cars on the road, not more. A plan like this would actually reduce traffic and would cause less detrimental impacts to the environment and the public lands enjoyed by people in West Ashley. This expensive and unnecessary road is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Romano, and then Raina Blackwell.
Hi, my name is John Romano. I live at 1322 Briarfield Avenue on James Island, and I'm speaking in opposition to the 526 Mark Clark extension. I think this project needs to be stopped in its tracks. It does not have or may never have the necessary $1.9 billion to fund its portion of the project. We also will see another decade before work even begins. In this time, we can make meaningful improvements to what already exists. The county should walk away before any other tax dollars are spent to move the project forward. Instead, we need to focus on improving every intersection along Maybank Highway, including where it intersects with Folly Road. Complete the Pitchfork projects and improve traffic flow onto 17 and 61 from Folly Road. In addition, there needs to be more of a focus on safe bike and pedestrian commuting, rapid bus transit, and the possibility of implementing a commuter ferry system. Doing any of this will be held hostage by the funds tied up for the 526 extension. And probably the biggest concern of the extension is the environmental impact it will have on our maritime forests, marshes, and wildlife, spanning the Stono River twice and building new roads through James and Johns Island. Let's kill 526 and fix what exists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Raina Blackwell, Katie Hotchkins.
My name is Raina Blackwell, and I also live at 1322 Briarfield Avenue on James Island. And I'm strongly opposed to the approval of the 526 extension for many reasons. It's an outdated and fiscally irresponsible plan with huge environmental impact on the area with minimal benefit to aid in helping with the overall flow and reduction of traffic. This extension calls to displace homes, businesses, and take large chunk of land away from an already stressed and dwindling wildlife habitat and natural surroundings due to constant overdevelopment of our beloved low country. We need to focus on what we can do now to improve our infrastructure and not waste all of our time and money on something that won't even be close to useful for another 10 years or more. Even then, report after report has proven it's not really that useful. There are alternatives that are much less costly and more beneficial to the area, such as the Pitchfork plans for Maybank Highway, which would allow for alternate routes and put less of a squeeze on the River Road intersection. This funding would be more valuable and useful to invest in a more approachable and useful bus transportation system, better and more bike and pedestrian paths, enhancing and repairing our poorly patched, pothole-ridden roads, and, maybe introduce the potential of a ferry system, because who doesn't like riding on a little boat here and there? There are better options that make more sense than this disastrous plan, and I hope our voices will be heard and respected, and I hope that the county will step up and fix what exists before throwing away more money on a terrible idea that so many people in the community are opposed to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Katie Hotchkins, Caitlin Cornwell.
My name is Katie Hodgson, and my address is 552 Private Leffler at Johns Island. And I moved to Johns Island from Mount Pleasant because the community was so focused on its nature and community and habitat. And I strongly oppose 526 being put into place and ask you please to walk away from this project. Let's put our resources into building up Johns Island. Let's put in some sidewalks. Let's get pedestrian and bikeways in place. Let's build up our community that exists there instead of putting a highway through there that's going to cause more congestion, detriment to our environment and the nature and community and agriculture that we love there. One of the things that I love about Johns Island is the number of farms and the fact that I can get fresh produce and so can you throughout all of Charleston County because of the number of local farms and produce that we have there. In terms of that environmental impact, it's going to, drive out our farmers and just continue to destroy the beautiful nature we have there. So I ask you to please step away. Let's put our resources into things that really matter to Johns Island. We don't want it there. We don't want 526. Please invest in what matters to us and hear us, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caitlin Cornwell, then Jordan Norville.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Cornwell-Galouz. I'm an assistant public defender. I work at 101 Meeting Street. I asked that at the next Human Resources Committee on June 2nd, you guys discuss the benefits of passing paid caregiver time off to include all family types, whether adopting, birthing, or co-parenting. As someone who just had COVID, and as someone who would like to start a family eventually, my sick time is currently at 0 hours. I shouldn't have to wait 4+ years to accrue enough time to start a family. A running list of signatures is circulating around the county department in support of paid parental leave. This list is currently at 91 signatures as of the last 24 hours, and the number continues to grow. The departments these employees work in include EMS, the county sheriff's office, public works, master in equity, building services, DEODAS, building inspections, the assessor's office, budget department, facilities, public defender's office, and the solicitor's office. I've yet to speak to a single county employee that isn't in full support of the county adopting paid county leave. There are a few county employees here in support of this today. I highly suggest that you keep this in mind when deciding whether or not to consider and pass this policy. The packet I have provided includes a list of all county employees whom signed the petition in support of paid caregiver leave. It also includes a letter from Lem Ziegler of the solicitor's office, a letter from Ronald Burbage of the sheriff's office, and a policy brief from the Department of Labor that he wanted to include for you all, a letter from Elizabeth Johnson, paramedic crew chief, and a letter from Matthew T. Everly of the Facilities Management Department. I ask that you review these and all letters in support that have been sent to your emails over the last few days. I look forward to hearing about your progress at the June 7th meeting. Thank you.
Jordan Norvell, Mallory Helena.
My name is Jordan Norvell. I'm a Charleston County employee. I live at 9 Norman Street. As you may or may not know, on May 13th of this year, Governor McMaster signed into law for the state of South Carolina paid parental leave. That includes 6 weeks of parental leave for the birthing parent, 2 weeks for the non-birthing, the adoptive, or the foster parent. That law is signed and it will take effect in this state on October 1st of 2022. Similarly, for federal employees, that law that Governor McMaster signed includes state employees. For federal employees, former President Trump signed into law in October of 2020, a law that gives federal employees 12 full weeks commensurate with the running of FMLA. I would like to see this county council take into account a similar measure for county employees. I would be happy with anything. I would be happy with the 6 weeks commensurate with the state law. I would like to see this addressed and brought to the HR committee at y'all's next meeting. I believe it's June 2nd. I would urge you to hear from the employees. There are, I believe, 90 employees at this point, 11 different departments. I, again, too, have not heard anyone who is not in support once they are informed of this, once they know this is an option. I am advocating today that you reach out, you hear the employees of your county, reach out to them and ask them their opinion. I would love to hear if somebody is opposed. The people that I've spoken with, certainly those 90 strong, are not opposed, and we would like to see this addressed. Anecdotally, I lateraled over from Berkeley County in the same role in 2019. It would have taken me 5 full years of not taking a single sick day to earn enough just for half of my FMLA to be paid. With doctor's appointments and with the pandemic, that was not an option. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Mallory Helena, Melanie Slane.
Good evening. My name is Mallory Helena. I'm a county employee. I'm at 5223 Celtic Drive. I'm also here in support of the Human Resources Committee, thinking about some sort of paid parental leave policy or a change in benefits. Much of the private sector has some sort of paid parental leave or at least a short-term disability option, which is something that the county took away at the end of 2020. So myself, along with others who had to go out to third parties, are spending close to $1,000 per year on short-term disability. Employees must drain their accrued sick and annual leave and then go unpaid while taking FMLA following the birth of a child. The result is the employee comes back to work with absolutely no leave and then has to go unpaid to go to the baby's doctor's appointments as well as the employee's doctor's appointments. As you've heard, federal employees get 12 weeks paid. State employees are now going to get 6 weeks paid. I love this city. I grew up here. My family is here. I love my job. But as you know, there's no way for the county to stay competitive if we don't have a change in our benefits. The cost of living is extremely high. And today's workforce, they're going to look for competitive pay or competitive benefits. We have lost good people, and we are going to continue to lose good people if we don't change this. Not only is paid leave the right thing to do, it gives parents time with their baby, increased newborn benefits, increased maternal health benefits. There are studies that show that employee morale, productivity, and retention increases. If the county wants to recruit and keep good people, I encourage you to consider this, and I will leave the literature here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie Slane, then Jane Hirsch.
Good evening. I'm Melanie Slan. I live at 6447 Armand Road, Wadmalaw Island, South Carolina. I am here to address the very poor broadband and Wi-Fi service that we receive on the island. First, I'd like to address the phone service, how it affects our phone services. Where I live, I'm just down the road from the Boy Scout camp, and sometimes calls will come through, sometimes they won't. Sometimes I have to go to a certain part of the house in order to receive a phone call. Sometimes we have to go literally across the road outside or down at the head of the road to be able to get a connection to either make or receive a call. I liken this to living off the grid. Now, if you're on vacation and you want to disconnect, that's fine. But day-to-day living, health, safety. I have a 90-year-old mother that lives with me. And when I'm away, in particular, I'm concerned for her health and well-being. A few years ago, our next-door neighbor, her husband had a heart attack, and she literally had to walk to the head of the road trying to get a connection, losing valuable time to be able to call for help. This is unacceptable. I'd also like to address how it affects me as a worker. I, since the pandemic, have been working a hybrid schedule, so my office mate and I, we share, we split the week. So sometimes on the days where I'm working from home, I'll have a connection. Some days everything works fine. There again, there are days where I can't get a connection. Things are being done through Zoom. If I can't handle a meeting through Zoom, I can't work. If I can't get a connection, I can't do my job. I can't remote into my desktop. Sometimes I packed up, went to the library down the road. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Thank you, Mayor.
Jane Hirsch, Becky Butler, George Richardson.
Good evening. My name is Jan Hirsch. I live in Ladson, and I'm here to encourage you on behalf of the Charleston Area Justice Ministry to establish and fund an affordable housing trust fund. Many communities similar to ours have had success combating housing crisis by utilizing this particular tool. Cities such as Greenville and Charlotte have become part of the proven history of using housing trust funds to improve housing affordability. There are almost 800 of these entities all across the country, and they work. We know that it is expensive to build here in Charleston, but according to a 2016 Housing Trust Fund survey report, county housing funds can leverage an average of $8.50 for every dollar committed by the Housing Trust Fund. It is quite literally an investment that is proven to pay off and will make our community more livable. I belong to Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim, located downtown, and when I think about the negative impact that this housing crisis can have on the future of our synagogue and community as a whole, I get angry. Angry that families just starting out, seniors on a fixed income, our neighbors and loved ones might not have the opportunity to live, work, and thrive in this community due to the lack of affordable housing. But I'm also hopeful that you as a council will go forward with the establishment and funding of an affordable housing trust fund. We are requesting that $10 million of the ARPA funds get designated for the establishment of a housing trust fund and ensure that it continues to be supported through the budget. Now is the time to act. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to direct these funds where they're critically needed. I'm asking you to do right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky Butler, George Richardson, Carla Pickney.
Becky Butler, 1201 Cutler Lane, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Numbers don't lie. We have known since 2009 that the Charleston area has a precarious future ahead if action is not taken to address the housing crisis. We heard from Charleston Metro Chamber that over 2,600 affordable homes per year for the next 10 years are needed to keep up with the ever-growing population. That number is not even close to being achieved. There's been study after study that tells us we have a lack of diverse housing options, lack of affordable homes near concentrated job centers, and a lack of collaboration between our municipalities. We need to start putting solutions in place. Our county council has the power to be the leading force of change in the fight for affordable housing. The funds that are available from ARPA can be the key to major sustainable progress towards our housing crisis. We are requesting that $10 million of ARPA funds get designated for the establishment of a housing trust fund. We cannot let this opportunity pass us by and not do everything in our power to do the best we can for those who are the most vulnerable. More than 10 years ago, the alarm started sounding about the housing crisis. Do we have the needed number of affordable homes to show we have heeded the warnings? Not even close. Now imagine another 10 years go by with no action. How many of your children, grandchildren, friends, neighbors, and people you worship with will be forced to move to more affordable communities? That's unacceptable. We have the solution to a better future. I do not personally struggle with finding safe, decent, affordable housing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky Butler, George Richardson, Carla Pinkney.
That was Becky Butler.
I'm sorry, George Richardson.
Good evening. My name is George Richardson. I reside at 1804 Battery Island Drive, that's on James Island. I'm here on behalf of the Beefield community, also known as the Battery Island Drive Neighborhood Association. I'm also the president of that community. I've been coming here for some time now in effort to become recognized as a historical district. It has been an experience for me. I've listened to a lot of pros and cons on developments and other things that the county deals with. And it makes me feel as though our request is just a little small corner in Charleston that I always refer to as a place that time has forgotten. And all we're doing is trying to preserve some of our history. Some have been lost, but there's still some that can still yet be saved. So with that being said, I'm hoping that with this third and final reading, that you all would see your way in allowing us to have some sort of history to be kept in place for the next generation to come and beyond. In closing, I want to say for the 10-mile island, the 10-mile community, I said last time at the center, at the meeting, that I support you guys in your effort to be in a historical district, because someone mentioned about the sweetgrass basket that's being made in I just want you to know that a lot of those people come into my neighborhood on James Island where they get the grass, to make those baskets. So we're connected, and I'm supporting you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Carla Pinkney, Pearl Askew, and Kevin Hughes.
Good evening. My name is Carla Pinkney. My address is 3768 Robbie Glover Road, Alwendaw, South Carolina. And on behalf of the 10 Mile community, we support you, the Beatsfield community as well. I stand in support of the 10 Mile community being granted the Historic District designation status. As we previously stated at past meetings, we are a diverse community and a settlement community in Charleston County with a wealth of history that goes back hundreds of years. We would like to preserve this history and the familial ties that made our community a great place to live for many generations. By granting us this Historic District designation status, we will be able to do so. I would like to ask this evening those who are here in support of the Historic District status for the 10 Mile community to please stand. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Hughes, 2779 McFadden Way, Johns Island, South Carolina. I'm here to express my opposition to 526. The project is too expensive and too harmful to our environment. Alt 6 is a viable solution. Alt 6 is the least destructive and most cost-effective approach to mitigate traffic issues. The idea of cutting through James Island County Park and destroying what's left of the rural nature of Johns Island is unfathomable. I urge you to please strongly consider the options that Rational Roads have proposed. Thank you kindly for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you.
Last one, Pearl Askew.
Good evening, Pearl Askew, 977 Gastonville Road, Alwendaw, South Carolina. I am the president of the 10 Mile Neighborhood Association, and I'm standing here this afternoon requesting support for our historical preservation district. We appreciate all that has been done thus far, not only by staff and council, but our young people who supports this initiative and entire residents of the 10 Mile community. I do appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that's the last speaker. We're going to now move into a special county council, finance committee meeting where staff is going to present 2023 budget. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gile.
Good evening, everybody.
It's while they're here so they can know. So can we announce that?
She just walked out. We get through the budget process. Once we get through the budget process, we can bring them in. So there won't be no confusion.
They're leaving.
Yeah.
See, they're leaving.
The lady that spoke in that group is already
Tonight, we're going to present an overview of the 23 budget. There's some dates for you. Tonight, we're not asking for an action. We're going to come back on the 2nd and go into a little more detail about the various offices and departments and have the first reading of the budget ordinance that evening. The 7th would be the public hearing and the second reading, and then the 21st would be the third reading. As we began this budget process, we had several challenges that we became aware of. Charleston County as a government, as well as private industry, is having challenges with competitive pay. The state has removed the pause that they had on employer health insurance cost. It will not be an increase for employees. That's just for the employer. Retirement increase again this year. And not a surprise that county as a government is also struggling with inflation. And we do have new facilities that we're opening this next year. Our strategies to overcome those challenges, this budget does include increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour. to be able to afford the increases that we had in 22. We're budgeting more of the personnel savings that we're expecting from vacant positions. In the general fund, it's gone from about $5 million to $13 million. That is probably the riskiest portion of our budget. If there is some change in the market where there is a return to government jobs as a preferred employer, we do not have enough money in the budget to fund all those positions. To make the budget balance, we also did not add any new FTEs, but we reprogrammed within existing positions to address the most critical needs. During the budget process, County Council will be asked to approve these millage rates. There are only 2 of these that have increases. These are both smaller fire districts. The East Cooper Fire District that is contracted with the town of Mount Pleasant, and the Northern Fire District, which is largely contracted with the C&B Fire Department. This is a summary of the county's overall budget. The dollars on the top portion of the slide and the positions on the bottom portion. As far as the appropriations, the general fund is up $21 million, and we're going to go into more detail on the general fund in a few more slides. As far as the other funds, you see the increase in the debt service fund and the special revenue funds. Those increases are based on higher debt service from the money that we borrowed in the fall of 21. And looking at the positions, you can see that overall there's not a change in authorized positions being requested. As far as the general fund revenues, I'm going to ask you to ignore the slide for a second, because apparently I've confused quite a few people with how I've explained this. So if you ignore this and look at overall property taxes, the revenues from property taxes are going to be up $11 million for next year. So the county has more revenue coming in due to growth in new construction and also from sale of property. The good news is that the sales tax has gone up so much that the credit that's going against property taxes will make the homeowners' property taxes and other taxpayers' taxes go down. The sales tax revenues are up $21 million. We do have some carryover from prior years, but we're estimating a reduction for the homeowners of over 25%. Now, the last revenue change, we do expect some additional interest earnings next year, although with inflation, it doesn't offset those costs. So that is the summary of the revenues. We're up $21 million overall for our budget. As far as the spending side, it's a balanced budget, so it's up the same $21 million. With the challenges that we have with competitive pay, you would think that personnel costs would be up higher than $3 million after we annualize the changes from last year, increase the minimum wage. But that increase in budgeted savings offsets some of those increases in cost. For the operating costs, we're up $11 million. A large portion of that is inflation for fuel, contracts. We also have new facilities. We're continuing to phase in the referendum related to the libraries and have a juvenile detention center and social services building that will be opening this year. For capital expenditures, those remain relatively the same. Technology projects are a little bit higher. Transfers out are up a little bit this year. Facility maintenance projects and fleet, a portion of those were paid from American Rescue Act funds last year. This is returning more to a normal level out of the general fund. This is a summary of the general fund expenditures. As part of the state's budget proviso, they have a transparency proviso for contributions. I wanted to point these out to council so you're aware of what's being approved in the budget. They're collectively up $4 million to $26 million. A lot of that is related to accommodations tax and how we share with municipalities. You'll see that there's several funds represented: the general fund, environmental management, local accommodations tax, stormwater fund, transportation sales tax, and economic development. So this was an overview of the budget. No action is being requested this evening, and we will be back on June the 2nd to talk more in detail. If there's any questions that I can answer for council.
I remain, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I remain perplexed. Can we go back to the slide before this one? I remain perplexed as to organizations that are enshrined in the county's budget year after year after year at any level. I know we have through our community outreach and development office, competitive grants and opportunities, even more so now, through funds that we've recently received from the government. And year after year, and I'll be the voice of one because others, say it outside of this session, but how do certain organizations become enshrined in the county budget whereby others cannot be? And at what point do we stop providing perpetual infusions to their budgets when there are other organizations just as worthy in our county to receive help? It's just a question.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anything else for Mr. Guile? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on now to our county council meeting. I'm going to ask Mr. Darby to lead us in prayer, and I'm going to ask Mr. Armstrong to lead us in the pledge. Let's all stand at this time. Reverend Darby.
Sir. We now come to do the business and the will of those who allow us to serve. Keep our hearts and minds clear that we may focus on the business and the will of those who gave us the opportunity to serve. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Ms. Salisbury, Freedom of Information Act.
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meetings was posted and agendas were distributed to news media and persons requesting notification.
Okay, item 1 is approval of the minutes of May 10th, 2022. What is a pleasure? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, deletions, or addition? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 2 is EMS Recognition Week resolution. What is the pleasure?
Move for committee recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Honeycutt. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Ms. Salisbury, will you read,
Yes, sir.
do you have a copy?
I have it.
Will you read it? Will you read it? And is anyone from EMS here? Mr. Abrams, to come up?
Charleston County Council to designate the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of Emergency Medical Services team are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas Charleston County Emergency Medical Services consists of paramedics, emergency medical technicians, support services, training, community outreach, professional standards, safety, and administration. And whereas the members of our emergency medical services team engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of Emergency Medical Services Week providers by designating May 15th through 21st, 2022, Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it resolved that in recognition of this event, Charleston County Council does hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022, Emergency Medical Services Week in Charleston County with the theme EMS Rising to the Challenge, and encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Charleston County Council, Teddy E. Pryor, Sr., Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams and your fine group, to the men and women who are represented here today. Y'all do a remarkable job, in 18 years for being here, plus, y'all have been number one stellar. You came in behind and took the job out of hand. And I just want to say during the pandemic, y'all did a remarkable job. I mean, putting y'all lives on the line to serve the people, that means a lot. So I just want you to know that County Council appreciates it. We're here for you, and whatever y'all need, it's our job to get it to you, so feel free to ask, okay? All right, okay.
May I make a comment too? And I certainly want to thank you all for the work you're doing as far as the reduction in your services. Instead of 30 minutes now, we are looking at 15 minutes or less sometimes in the rural area. I really appreciate that. I was out at Parker's Ferry when a person fell out and had a quick response, and I was so happy to see you all right on time.
We're happy to be there as well. And
Thank you.
For the station you guys
Okay.
are building for us out there, and for the constant support.
And we're looking
Mr.
forward
Webber?
definitely to that.
Yes, I would echo what Ms. Johnson and what Chairman Pryor have said. I mean, this is really sort of the foundation of what the county needs to be doing. This is the core of public services. This is really just the basis and the most important thing that we can be doing as a county. And so we certainly thank you all so much for answering the call and doing so, excelling in doing so. And again, I think we're very, very happy to support you, but more thankful for the work that you do on a daily basis.
Anybody else? Okay, thank y'all so much. Mr. Abrams, take those ladies and gentlemen to dinner.
Mr. Chairman, our biggest challenge tonight was getting actually field crews to come up here, but they're out running calls and couldn't make it up here. So just, that's why you have all the white shirts up here, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your service, yes. Okay, we now move to item number 3, which is third reading of the B Field Community Historic Designation.
An ordinance designating the Beefield community located in the James Island area of unincorporated Charleston County as a historic district on the Charleston County Historic Designation List. Mr. Darby? Aye. Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman? Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Ordinance passes third reading with 9 ayes.
Thank you for your time and your effort, sir. You're welcome to stay to the rest of the meeting. If not, you're dismissed. Okay. Item number 4 is second reading of the Auburndale-McClellanville Consolidated Fire District Advisory Board.
An ordinance to dissolve the Auburndale Consolidated Fire District Advisory Board and other matters related thereto. Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
No.
Ms. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Sass? Aye. Mr. Schwiers? Aye. Mr. Werman? Aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Ordinance passes second reading with 8 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay, item 5 is 5A, Latson Road, request to consider. What is the pleasure?
Move for approval.
Second by Mr. Sass, moved by Mr. Swears. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Ms. Salisbury.
An ordinance rezoning the real property located at 3347 Ladson Road, parcel identification number 39000000076, from the Community Commercial CC zoning district to the General Office OG zoning district.
Okay, item 5B is Kiowa River Plan Development and Development Agreement. What is the pleasure?
Move for approval.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sass, moved by Ms. Honeycutt. Any discussion?
Sure.
Darby?
There's an old saying that says, if you haven't experienced certain things in life, you can't say certain things in life. And where I live, strictly a minority area, I know how it feels when other entities just force themselves on you. I think people of the community ought to have say of what can go in their community, but it seems now that I don't knock people because of their wealth and developers who want to make money. I don't knock that, but at the same time, we need to be sensitive to the community. Those are the people who live there, that work there, and if they don't want a foreign agent in their community, we should not force that upon them. And what we are doing tonight for those who do vote for this, you're actually forcing this on a community which does not want it. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Darby. Anybody else? Okay.
I just want to make a reference here. I understand that this is something that was already in the original PD,
Yes.
and in fact, we are downsizing it?
Yes.
Okay. While I support communities, definitely being able to give a voice in what happens inside their communities, I feel that this is something a little different where the policy was already set, and we are trying to downsize it as it is. So it's something that I'm going to support hesitantly, but I think we have to respect what we've already put in the policy.
Okay, anybody else? And if I'm right, we'll see is Joel or anybody. So what we're doing here is we're actually, allowing them to downsize, because if this is voted down, they can actually do more than what they're asking for. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the position of the applicant.
Yeah, so I applaud them for listening to the community and going back and, and saying, okay, we want to be a friend of the community. They could have just snapped at everybody and said, you know what, we're going to take what we're going to get, what's promised, and move on. But they didn't do that. They went back. So I applaud the community as well as I applaud the applicant. But we cannot, stop them from doing what's rightfully allowed. And I appreciate y'all working with our staff to make this smaller versus bigger. Okay? So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Would you raise your hand for the roll? Okay, you got two nays, Mr. Reverend Middleton and Mr. Darby. Okay? First reading.
Yes, sir. An ordinance amending the Kiowa River Plan Development Zoning District, PD 143B of the Kiowa River Development Agreement, Johns Island, South Carolina, by and among Kiowa River Investment LLC and Charleston County, South Carolina.
Okay, who made that motion, Ms. Honeycutt? Do you want to amend it up to third reading, or are you fine with it? Yes, please. Would you add that to the?
Yes.
And the second was done by Mr. Sass. You good with that, Mr. Sass?
Yes, sir.
Okay, amend up to third reading. All right, item 5C is the 10-mile historic.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second by Reverend Middleton. Mr. Swayze, would you like to amend and read up to third reading?
Sure, I can't imagine doing that, but sure.
Yeah, in case something comes up. Yes, sir. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Ms. Salisbury.
An ordinance designating the 10-mile community located in the East Cooper area of unincorporated Charleston County as a historic district on the Charleston County Historic Designation List.
Okay, item 6A is state accommodation tax. Request approved. What's the pleasure?
Move for, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. 6B is public safety building repair of selected facade components. What is the pleasure?
We did, I'll move for approval. I thought we did them both, but I'll move for approval of 6B.
All right, second by Ms. Johnson, moved by Mr. Moody. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. You want to take 7A, B, C, and D all at once, or you want to
Move
take
to approve.
All right,
A, B,
that's-
C, and D.
Is it second by Mr. Werman, moved by Reverend Middleton. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. I think that does it, right? Mr.
Yes, sir,
Salisbury?
that's it.
Okay, I just wanted to turn the sheet over. All right, so now I'm going to move from my left, council comments, Mr. Werman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
sir.
I would, to address some of our public comments, particularly those directed towards the HR committee and paid leave. I would like to call an HR meeting for us to kind of discuss what our options are. I understand, I believe staff is a bit ahead of us on this and has considered a variety of options. I don't know the level of detail that we can get into that, but certainly if we can begin that discussion and kind of see where council members are at, and maybe get some direction as far as potential options or at least some cost estimates or something like that to kind of give us some orientation as to how we can make this decision. I would like to call that meeting for June 2nd.
Mr. Werman, could I be so kind to ask you, since we're going to be into the budget, could we do this after the budget?
After the entire budget?
It'll be at the end of June, yes. Because, I mean, you know, I want to get all the information I can, I know that, but, you know, I don't want to, you know, overload the budget and have us here, you know, longer than normal. But I mean, that's your call. If you ask for it, you know, that's fine, but I just asking for consideration. You know, I don't want it to be turned out to where, you know, we spend an hour on something that we're going to have to debate down the road anyway. But if you wanted to do it on HR, council, they got to discuss it with no, you know, no input from the audience because they've already had their say. That's up to you.
What would the date be? I assume it'd be 2 weeks from the 2nd, so the 16th.
What would the next, after the budget, the last meeting?
When we're finished with the budget, hang on.
Because Ms. Johnson had a request about broadband, I asked her to wait.
Yes.
Okay.
It's your call.
Chairman, I'm hesitant to push it all the way till after the entire budget.
June 2nd, we'll do June 2nd.
It would be July 7th if we wait
July
until
7th.
after the budget.
Okay.
I'd like to move forward.
Okay. And Ms. Johnson, I'll put yours on there too to discuss Wi-Fi July on the same as June 2nd.
Yeah, okay, that
All
sounds
right.
good, because I did thank the
right.
Guatemala people for coming and bringing this to
All
our
right, so
attention.
put both of them on there.
Okay.
You know, okay. And on your public safety meeting, you can call a meeting with public safety and put that on the public safety committee.
Okay.
Because that is a public safety. All right. You done, Mr. Werman?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. Mr. Worman and I spoke before the meeting, and I'm interested to hear what staff has to say. I mean, I'm interested as well as the business case. What are we giving up to pay for this possible? What legal issues we may run into? Those are the kind of things that I think we've got to wade into. I mean, who doesn't support parental leave? I mean, it's a no-brainer, but we've got to have a business case to be made too. I did want to mention something about the Kiowa River, and Mr. Darby made a good point, and Mr. Sass reminded me that constituents we got to listen to them. The same, Mr. Darby, is when you put a sober house in the middle of a 40-year-old neighborhood. I mean, we get that. But also the notion of moving in this case, I'm picking on these guys, but moving in somewhere, signing a bunch of contracts to say what might come, and then coming to protest it is disingenuous to me. Just as disingenuous as moving to Johns Island in the path of possible 526 and saying, you can't build this, I'm going to pull the bridge up behind me. That's that kind of commentary just doesn't play with me. But folks got a right to say what they want to say, and we've got to sit here and listen to it, so we will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sass?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Interested to keep going on the budget. Good presentation today. And I'll be calling you. I'll have a couple of questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Johnson?
Well, I just want to ask our clerk to please schedule a public safety meeting as soon as possible so that we could get an update of what the state status is for the internet, and also for us to discuss the deficiencies that is happening in Guatemala, and to look at what we might be able to do about it. I don't know if there's anything we could do as far as the suppliers that are supplying the services out there, but certainly we should have some kind of idea about what is going on and what could be corrected.
Okay. You done, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Honeycutt?
Yes, just a couple of items. First, thank you so much to our budget team. Again, well done, and I like that we don't have a tax increase. Mr. Armstrong, I have a quick question. It came up a couple times in public comment, or maybe Mr. Thigpen. Where are we on the northern pitchfork? That's going out to contract pretty soon, isn't it?
I think it's been delivered and the draft has been done in procurement. DHEC changed some regulations on us, I think February or March. So it had to be put back out on public notice again for 30 days.
Okay.
And so they've asked for some additional information relating to alternatives that we considered for the project. We're gathering that data and should have it to them in the next 30 days.
We'll be putting it out the contract this summerish?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You done with that again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Darby?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Several years ago, either the late 70s or early 80s, I read a very soul-stirring book by Reinhold Niebuhr. And the title of the book was Moral Man and Immoral Society. And the thesis of Moral Man and Immoral Society is that people are more likely to sin as members of a group than as individuals. I find it so tragic today that America brags so sublimely about its morality and ethics and family value, but yet there's not enough morality to prevent the killings of second, third, fourth grade kids and a teacher. And yet we speak so eloquently about family values. And yet some of us maintain our silence. And 2,000 years ago, a great man once said, not only do we sin by commission, and we sin by omission. Mm-hmm. And those of us who are against restriction on gun control, if we can have restriction on the freedom of speech, restriction on freedom of the press, restriction on petition, restriction on assembly, yet we can have certain restriction on guns. I really don't understand that. And Dr. King backs this great philosopher by saying there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And when you know something is wrong and you don't address it, you're just as guilty as the person who pulls the trigger. And I hope one day that this country will live up to the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But now how these second, third, fourth grade kids and teachers are going to pursue happiness when they're shot and killed? The folk in Buffalo. It's just so almost hypocritical about this creed of this nation that we allow these things and we say nothing about it, particularly those of us who are in government. This is the only audience that I have. So I'm going to express the best way I can. Because when the time is going to come, I want somebody to say that I did try to do the right thing, and I did try to say the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Darby, you left out the word greed. That's why greed. This country's kind of so fixated on greed and money and power, they forget about morals and ethics. So I don't disagree with you. Mr. Swears. Nothing tonight. Reverend Middleton.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My
Yes, sir.
heart, Mr. Darby, I was going to mention this myself. I got a call from Jennifer Pinckney, very close with her, the widow of the late Senator Clemente Carlos Pinckney, very dear friend of mine. And she was the one that broke the news to me about the shooting that occurred in Texas, and, you know, becomes re-traumatized each time there is a shooting. And looking at the 14 students and the one teacher, and certainly the issue of gun violence in America is one that continues to rest with me since 2015. And certainly it should have resonated with me before, but even more so after 2015, being personally involved in losing a loved one in a mass shooting tragedy right here in Charleston. Looking at the end of the school year and our children and young people, some districts preparing to end school on the 31st, others shortly in June, and children are going to be out for the summer. Prayerfully, the public library will engage many of them, but others will be taken to the streets. And based on, the lack of activities and offerings for them, and I am so heartened to see the county offering internships and opportunities for young people across agencies to be employed and to receive job training or experiences within county government. But it becomes a reality that when our young people are not actively engaged, and I've heard many groups, as we talk about sitting, listening to public comments, many groups begging us, to intervene with at least resources that enables youth programs and youth mentoring or activities to occur in some of these communities, because it does take resources as our children prepare to get out for the summer. My prayer continues to be that we have thriving communities that engages them, whereby they are able to be involved in structured, fruitful, healthy activities that will shape them as they prepare for the new school year and as they prepare for life. But as we go through the summer, void those things, then we know what kind of story that becomes as well. And so I appreciate, Mr. Darby, you bringing that up. That was on my heart. And I continue to pray that we can find ways to at least be a nexus or a bridge for those kind of issues.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you. Madam Attorney? Mr. Administrator?
Nothing, sir.
So let me say happy birthday to Ms. Worsler. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, man.
And we appreciate all you do, and may you have many, many more. But to get to Reverend Middleton and Mr. Darby, Mr. Werman, myself, and Deputy Administrator Watson has been sitting on a committee now for the last month and a half, or maybe longer, trying to do some of the things that you just said, investing back in the community, because these groups are out here, they're paving and hitting the streets, and it takes resources to get things done. And so what we did today was we collectively, they took in, applications from some of these groups. They're going to narrow it down to, a few people. And then we're going to figure out how we fund these people, because as I said today, this comes from years of neglect. If you neglect your house and don't do anything to keep it up, it's going to fall apart and it's going to rot and it's going to fall down. And so if you say you love people and if you say you love life, then you invest in what you love. Anybody can say, I love this or I love that, but love is an action word. And so we have to do something. We may not be able to do all, but whatever we decide, I will bring back to this council. And I would hope that this council would be willing to make an effort and a start and then invest, and let's try to stop some of the senseless violence, because it's not going to stop until we attack it and we know it's there, and people can turn their head and say, well, I live in a community that doesn't happen, but it's coming to your doorstep. Whatever comes to my doorstep is going to eventually come to yours. And back when we were doing CPAD, Mr. Darby, we only had a flashlight and a T-shirt. That's all we got. And maybe a walkie-talkie, but we did it. But now people need resources to reach these kids and to reach these, not only the kids, but you got 30 and 40-year-old men acting like teenagers. So I don't disagree. My heart grieves, and I am angry about what happened in Texas as well as Buffalo. And we keep saying the same thing over and over. What are we going to do? Our federal government needs to step up to the plate and do something. Let's take the politics out and save lives. And so I would ask that y'all take into consideration and keep in mind whatever that committee comes up with, I'm going to bring it back and ask council to get involved. Meeting adjourned.